What is the greatest comeback to a insult you've ever heard? Joe Pine interviewing Frank Zappa. Joe: I guess your long hair makes you a woman. FZ: I guess your wooden leg makes you a table. During WW1, Switzerland had a tiny standing army, but they were very skilled marksmen. Wilhelm II of Germany asked what 250k Swiss troops would do if he decided to invade with 500k German troops. The Swiss said, "Shoot twice and go home." 18th-century British radical politician John Wilkes was told in Parliament by a political opponent, "Sir, I do not know whether you will die on the gallows or of the pox." Wilkes shot back with, "That depends, my lord, on whether I embrace your lordship's principles or your mistress." My grandparents used to bicker. My grandmother generally came out on top, as she was fierier. One time though, she was asking him to do a bunch of stuff, and he muttered, "If you'd lose some weight, you could do it yourself." She fixed her gaze on him, and glowered, "I'm thinking of getting rid of about 200 lbs of useless fat immediately." He replied, "You're going to cut off your foot?" Someone yelled out in a Walmart, "I'm not ashamed of who I am." Another voice echoed back, "That's your parents' job." Saw a clip of a stand-up comedian the other day, and he says something along the lines of, "The first time I had sex it was terrible. The first time I had sex." And a woman chimes in with, "You mean yesterday?" Crowd laughs for a while, and while the comedian is waiting for them to calm down you can see the gears turn in his head. Once it gets down to basically a few chuckles, he just says, "Glad you remember," and the crowd just lost their shit. It was amazing. I used to work with this like 70-year-old woman. She was our supervisor, and one day one of the ladies who worked with us told this old lady to "kiss my ass." And the old lady replied, "Where do I start? You're so fat your crack goes all the way up your back." I asked my mother why she always wears makeup despite being in her 40s. She told me she wears makeup so she doesn't look like me. I was 9. A guy makes fun of his bald friend by rubbing his head and saying, "Wow, your head is as smooth as my wife's bottom." The friend also rubs his head and says, "Wow, you're right." Quiet guy in my art class got called queer bait. He replied with, "If I'm the bait then you're the catch of the day." One of my coworkers was cold calling customers, trying to get appointments to drum up business. One of them told him to go fuck his hand, and he responded with, "I've got that penciled in for 3. I should be done by 4 if you'd like to come in for an appointment then?" The guy laughed his ass off, and ended up coming in for the appointment. Winston Churchill, of course. Lady Nancy Astor: "Winston, if you were my husband, I'd poison your tea." Churchill: "Nancy, if I were your husband, I'd drink it." I was the one insulted, but not the one with the comeback. I was out with a coworker and her friends and my buddy and I were leaving a little too early for her sensibilities. She jokingly got up in my face and said, "Smell that? Smells like pussy." A guy playing at the pool table next to us stepped forward and said, "I'm sorry, that must be me. I just ate. It was amazing." You sure do talk a lot for never saying anything. Not heard, but read. Easily the Spartans reply to Philip II of Macedon. As Philip II of Macedon was conquering Greek city-states left and right, Sparta was left alone. Philip had achieved a crushing victory, and Sparta was relatively weak and without walls. Philip sent a message to the Spartans saying, "If I invade Laconia you will be destroyed, never to rise again." The Spartans replied with one word, "If." My grandma asked my cousin, who'd had lots of partners and 2 kids at this point, if she was ever going to get married. Cousin: "It's not the same nowadays. We don't buy cars without test driving them first." Grandma: "Yeah, but they don't let you put 100,000 miles on them either." Point goes to Granny. I've been called worse things by better people. A friend of mine was getting bitched at by these 2 identical twin girls in a class one had once. He replied with a troubling look on his face and said, "If you 2 are identical, how come only one of you are hot?" That dude played the long game as those 2 girls looked rather perplexed for the rest of the session. Fixed. Sorry on this topic. If you want to incite chaos, go on a girl's Instagram and find a group photo of 3 or more. Then comment, "You 2 look great." Edit. I love how my first gold is advice on how to cause legal chaos. If I knew this was the case, I would have given more tips. Edit number 2. Some people are calling me Aris. Apparently my tips for chaos came straight out of Aris's playbook. Best part is when I bought my second car, I named it after Aris, because the car was chaotic, and it was going to have a red-black color scheme. I just think that's funny. I have something similar. Have a group text made up of 5 people. It's called 3 of my favorite people. In high school, we congregated in our cliques around the benches. One friend is cracking his knuckles and did this fairly often. Another friend saw this and remarked, "You pop your hands a lot, you must jerk off a lot." The friend that popped his hands immediately looks at him and calmly says, "You pop your jaw a lot, you must suck dick a lot." Weirdly enough, no one laughed, we just all shrugged and took it as a logical explanation. It's been over 20 years and I still think about the logic. Edit. Wow, look at those numbers. Thanks Internet fam. As for the informative comments about changing clicks to clicks for the sake of the story, I think I'll leave it as is. In middle school, a boy asked when I was going to grow some boobs. So I asked him when he was donating his. I'm still really proud of that one. Edit. I didn't expect this to blow up. But I remember this clearly. He was walking out of English, I was walking in. We met at the doorway and were chest to chest. And he looks me in the eye and says, "Grow some tits." Without missing a beat I reply dead-faced, "Donate yours." Then proceed to proudly walk to my desk with a big smile. Also, I did eventually grow some boobs. They are small but they are nice. Context. John Oliver from HBO interviews Stephen Hawking. May he rest in peace, Joe. And there may be a universe where I am more intelligent than you. Shish. There may even be a universe where you are funny. Anything I've thought of more than an hour after the insult. The greatest comeback I witnessed was when Kumail Nanjiani was on Mean Tweets and someone asked, "Is your dick multiple colors?" And he said, "Yes, every shade of your mom's lipstick." What are you looking at? I'm still trying to find out. On a construction site one afternoon, different trades were working in the same area. Like silly team sports, the Sparkies always hang with the Sparkies and the Turd Wranglers always hang with the Turd Wranglers, and anytime they're together it turns into a pointless dick measuring contest, usually not literally. One particularly childish exchange saw 2 men chopping back and forth, "My dick biggest, blah blah blah." Finally one of them spits out this classic, "I've got girth like a can of corn." And the clapback was unforgettable, "But you've got length like a can of tuna." Everyone busted up. Mr. Girth tried to hide his embarrassment, but was tied up. No comeback. And a room of men laughing uncontrollably. Good times. A friend in high school on our way to a track meet. He was staring at a car in the parking that was really nice. When this DBAG saw him. D-bag. Why bothering looking at that when you know you'll never be able to get one? My friend. The same reason you watch porn. The entire bus erupted and it's still one of the funniest things I've ever heard. It was an exchange between 2 coworkers a few years back, basically a slut-shaming gone wrong. Person A had only ever slept with one person, their previous boyfriend that they were still obsessed with. Person B was the opposite and would bang a different person every week. Person A. I can't believe how many people you've slept with. I don't understand how people can have sex with someone they aren't in love with. Person B. Well, your ex-boyfriend seemed to manage it okay. Person A. Silence as he dies inside. Edit. Yes guys, he had an ex-boyfriend. Person A was a gay man. It's not a typo, it's 2020. My grandma got into a fight at the grocery store with a guy who told my 9-year-old brother to move the fuck out of the way. They were going at it and his final words were, "Suck my dick, bitch." She said across the store, "If I could find it, bitch." Edit. Not Walmart. Even better, Aldi. The classic. You're adopted, at least my parents chose to have me. Glenn McGrath, Aussie cricketer, got frustrated with Edo Brandis as his every attempt to stump Brandis failed. This is what happened next. McGrath. Why are you so fat? Brandis. Because every time I fuck your wife, she gives me a biscuit. Easy. Now don't let your brains go to your head. David Letterman. I'm not as dumb as I look. Tina Fey. How could you be? I expected a better insult from someone of your upbringing and education. Lol, my mom was a librarian and pulled this one on a rude patron. Are you getting smart with me? Would you be able to tell? If you weren't so stupid, what would you be? Asks the husband. The wife replies, without even skipping a beat. Single. Come on. Stop telling me how to live my life. I don't tell you how to live your life. It's not like I come down to the docks at night, knocking the sailors' cocks out of your mouth. Me. We should learn from our mistakes. My friend. So that's why you have a younger sister. Definitely a great comeback, but not to an insult, more to an annoyance. I was a camp counselor for a few years at a summer camp. One day my group took a hike to a large rock where we had lunch. My campers were between 8 and 10 years old. This one kid we'll call Jeff keeps poking another kid we'll call Matt in my group to look at this hole in the rock. It's so cool. It's like 6 inches deep and the other kid is clearly getting annoyed just trying to eat his lunch. He keeps shoving sticks into the hole and trying to get everybody to look at it. Finally Matt just puts down his sandwich, looks at Jeff, and goes, "I'll be 6 inches deep in your mom later if you don't shut up." I was trying so hard to be stern with this kid for saying something so inappropriate, but I kept cracking up. It was just such a disproportionately ridiculous thing to say coming from a 9-year-old. Gandhi after a reporter asked him a question. Reporter: what do you think of Western civilization? Gandhi: I think it would be a good idea. Was out with a friend who was wearing a silly outfit. Someone came up and said, "Why are you wearing that? It's not Halloween." He replied with, "Then why don't you take off that hideous mask?" When my younger brother was about 5, he would hold up a picture of an ape and say, "Hey, look in this mirror," to which my older brother replied, "That's a picture of an ape, but I see why you thought it was a mirror." I can't remember the best one I've heard, but I can remember the best comeback I ever did. It is also, in fact, the only good comeback I ever did. I was in 7th grade, and we were in the locker room after gym. People were discussing shoe sizes because this one kid had enormous feet. I don't know if I have small feet, but mine were the smallest. They said, "Small feet, you know what that means." I didn't mind too much, but one kid crossed the line. He said, "Don't worry, fella, there's like 10 different ways to make it bigger." So I said, "Have you tried all 10? Not very impressive, but it shut him up.